Hey everyone, welcome back or welcome to How to Write the Future podcast. I am your host, Beth Barany. I am an award-winning science fiction and fantasy writer, also creativity coach and writing teacher for science fiction and fantasy authors. I have this podcast because I care very much about creating positive, optimistic futures through our stories. So I host other writers and thinkers and futurists and also share my thoughts on how to do that, from the practical to the theoretical and everything in between. So thank you very much for being here with us today. Enjoy part 2 of my conversation with my guest, Jennifer Browdy. Are there any other suggestions that you have for young people or anybody who wants to work on their positive, optimistic visions for the future? What are some resources or tips that you have for them, for us?
I think that many of us tend to be in our heads way too much. And we just spend a lot of time on screens and in our own heads. And I think getting away from the screens, getting away from the desk, getting out into the world, getting out in nature, doing things in our bodies, moving our bodies, I think that's really important. You mentioned my Substack blog, The Spirit of Education. One thing that I think I've written about already, but if not, I will be. I'm really not a big fan of the only embodied education being competitive sport at the K to 12 age. So that seems to be the outlet, is when kids are encouraged to move, it's in this competitive way.
Yeah.
So I really think that is not healthy. And here's your kitty. And yeah, animals, we need to spend more time with animals. The other thing hidden in my bio is that I have been doing a lot of riding, horseback riding and writing. I lead these tours of writing, and horseback riding has really been a huge transformative thing for me to get back to that as an older adult. And so I would encourage people to do that too. It's really healthy. So the thing about maintaining a positive outlook is you have to be in good spirits yourself. If you're feeling down and paralyzed and overwhelmed and anxious, it's really easy to get into that state. How can you possibly write a positive future without feeling like you're just pie in the sky and rose-colored glasses? I think maintaining our own individual health is a really important part of being able to contribute to broader social health.
Yeah. I love that. I'm a big proponent for walking. I often walk and then write, and I do a lot of thinking and processing while walking. And I'm really glad that you brought that up. And I see that you offer courses and support for people who want to write about their lives in a way that's impactful. And I really love your phrase. I read your piece on the world rights. So world and then write, WRIGHT. You coined it from a playwright. And I love your phrase, writing to write the world. Do you want to say a little bit more about that and what you offer and how you support writers there?
Yeah. So in my Purposeful Memoirs, A Quest for a Thriving Future book is where I've started to talk about world rights, which is a term that just came to me on the beach, as many good ideas do. And so playwrights write plays, and world rights write to make the world better, which is also the motto of my publishing company, Greenfire Press, is dedicated to books that make the world better. And the idea of seeing what we write, whether it's fiction or memoir, or whatever it is, in terms of how it could be beneficial to others. So to have that kind of explicit mission in mind. I got this idea in connection with memoir because memoir is often seen as a kind of self-indulgent, navel-gazing form, and it can be. And there are a lot of memoirs out there that are just laments. There's a lot of trauma literature out there that really doesn't go beyond recounting the trauma, which has therapeutic value for the person who's recounting it, but not necessarily for the readers. In the course of teaching a lot of courses on memoir, I just began to think that we need to get beyond all those challenges that inevitably come into every life story and think about, what are the life lessons learned? What do I have to share from my life experience that can be a benefit to others who may be experiencing something similar or may know people who are experiencing something similar? So when I do author coaching, I try to get people to think about this, think about what they have to offer in their stories that will help others. And it's usually a really opening and freeing question for people because they do tend to think, who would possibly want to know about my life and all my troubles? And the answer is many people, if you're presenting it in a way that will help them understand their own lives more deeply and also help them surmount these challenges.
That's beautiful. And noticing how it's not just one individual story, that we're really a part of a system, that we're part of our own culture, that we're part of a lineage, that we're part of a greater humanity. I like that you framed it in that way. People can reach out to you through your website, jenniferbrowdy.com. Also, you have a Substack, The Spirit of Education. And is there any other way? Oh, you have two Substacks.
Yes, I have The Spirit of Education is the sandbox for my book, which will be on how education needs to transform to meet the challenges of the 21st century. So very Thrutopian. And then my other one is Writing to Write the World. I should tell you, of all people, that I am also writing a fantasy novel. And I have been for years, actually. And the moment for that novel is something that I wrote about in my memoir. What I forgot, I had forgotten it entirely, but when I was 8 years old, a wood nymph named Estrella visited me, and I started to write her story. She was very upset because her forest was being cut down, and she was trying to convene a council to figure out a solution for this. And I stopped writing the story. I didn't finish it because I had no idea what the solution might be at 8 years old. And I felt like all these years she's been hanging out there, still calling to me and waiting for me to figure this out. So the fantasy novel that I've been working on goes back and forth between a very grim sort of academia, similar to the place I inhabit in my ordinary life, and a fantasy world. So I'm having fun with that. And I also teach a course called Tell the Truth Through Fiction, where I really think sometimes you can tell the truth much better when you write fiction than memoir. For instance, when I'm writing about academia in my novel, I think I'm more truthful than I could be in memoir.
As a child, I learned a lot about history and politics and other topics, but especially those two, which were I found very challenging in school and taught in a very remote way, as if history just happens. But actually, history is made by people who make decisions. And when I read fiction about it, I could all of a sudden understand it. And I found I learned more in reading the Dune series than I ever did in any course. I never took a course on political economy or political history, but in all the history courses, they never talked about the people who made the decisions and why they made them and the pressures they're going under. And all of a sudden, the Dune series was like, wow, a masterclass. I read when I was 19 instead of studying for finals. So I love that you do that. And I know there are many readers who love fiction for this purpose, obviously myself included. So I'm really glad that you're working on this fantasy novel. Do you have any idea about when it might be published?
It's still pretty far out. And I'm not sure that I would publish it before I'm retired from academia. It's like that true.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes total sense. If this show is still around or who knows what I'll be doing, I would feel shocking about it. Read it, share it. Because I love that. I love that kind of thing. Ah, great. Let's wrap it up for today. We'll have to come back and have more discussion. I would love to have you back when I'm going to do a series at some point on education. I'm very much curious to talk with you more about how we can change education. And I actually have a novel in mind about all of that as alternative, future that involves education, but having high school kids and all this stuff. At some point, we'll have to come and talk more about education. Just going to drop that in there. Now, speaking directly to science fiction and fantasy writers, do you have any tips for them about how they can bring in positive, optimistic visions into their work? What can you offer them?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think what I'm trying to do, and it's very challenging, that's why I'm writing so slowly, is I'm trying to stay away from the old hero's journey, very conventional, dark and light, good and evil, light will conquer all. I think those narratives are just played out, and I'm looking for something different. And it's been hard to find. So to be honest, I have been exploring. I think I've practically done another whole PhD study of the occult and esoterica, metaphysics, mysticism. And really, that's where I'm looking and where I'm listening for new ideas. It's maybe paradoxical because most of them are very ancient, but they're new in the sense what I'm looking for is direct transmissions. And I'm not talking about religion. Religion is definitely not where I'm going, but I'm listening for new ideas that are coming from other realms. That's what I want to bring down onto the page.
Yeah. New paradigms. Sounds like you're living in new paradigms. I love your focus on transmission, because how are we going to create new ideas if we're always pulling from the old? How can we feed ourselves new experiences so that we can develop something new?
Yes, that's it. Because as multiple civilizations interlocking, we've just been stuck in a rut for quite a couple of millennia here. We're just doing the same, and we need to break out of it. So I'm very excited that this is the year of the dragon, and I feel a lot of energy roaring up with that dragon. There's a potential for a big leap this year.
Absolutely. And I know from an astrological point of view, there's going to be a lot of shifts, a lot of changes, and we need a lot of resilience and we need a lot of creative thinking. My stance is that creativity is what's going to allow us to continue to evolve, not doing the same old. And the education of women, the education of everyone, but including, of course, women who traditionally in many places have not received education. Yeah, that's my thought on that.
Absolutely. And just
Yeah.
the sort of rise of feminine energy,
Yes.
that's, yeah, which I think the dragon represents yin and yang, to use those terms put together. It's got both.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I know traditionally the Eastern dragon has been more yin compared to the way the Western dragon has been portrayed, very yang, very fire. Yeah, fascinating. Wow. I have a lot to say about that because I'm also working on a whole series of stories involving monsters and our relationship to that archetype. And yeah, so fun. Jennifer, it's been really fun chatting with you and talking with you about these ideas. And I look forward to having you back and furthering conversation. I'm really grateful for the work that you do with writers and inside of formal education and also outside of formal education. I think we need what you have to offer. And I hope that one day you can teach your Writing the Future class.
Yes, definitely bringing it back for sure.
Great. Thank you so much again. And I'm going to say to all of our guests, write long and prosper.